The human named Leon had never expected to find himself on a distant world, its skies threaded with silver clouds and its air humming with luminous particles that danced like drifting sparks. He had come as part of a diplomatic escort, a quiet presence assigned to protect the representatives from Earth during discussions with the royal house of the tall, crystalline-skinned beings who ruled this sector. Their empire stretched across dozens of stars, and their fleets shimmered with strange energies humankind barely understood. To Leon, they felt like living monuments, carved from light and will. The princess, called Lyra, was the nearest to human size, radiant but not imposing, curious but not weak. She had greeted the delegation with a soft glow in her eyes. For a fleeting moment, Leon had thought the mission might pass without incident. That hope shattered when the assassins struck. They burst through a side corridor in a blur of obsidian armor lined with pulsing veins of red energy. The air crackled, and the luminous particles dissolved into frantic streaks as weapons ignited. The attack hit so quickly that the guards barely had time to raise shields. Lyra stood directly in the path of the strike, her attendants too far back and her body too fragile against the jagged blast tearing toward her. Leon saw the incoming bolt and reacted before his mind even registered fear. He lunged forward, pivoting his body into the attack, pushing Lyra behind him. The energy pierced his armor and bit into his side with scorching force. His blood arced across the crystalline floor like an ink spill and shimmered unnaturally in the alien light. Leon collapsed to one knee but held his shield up until the palace guards surged forward. Their counterattack was swift and merciless, beams of pure blue slicing through the assassins. When the danger passed, Lyra knelt beside Leon with trembling hands, her glow flickering erratically. Her people were not accustomed to seeing a foreigner bleed for them, let alone one who acted with no thought of reward or safety. Before she could speak, more guards rushed in and carried Leon to the healing chambers. His vision faded as their words blurred into indistinct echoes. When he awoke, he lay inside a chamber of translucent mineral that thrummed gently. Threads of gentle light wrapped around his torso, sealing his wound inch by inch. His breath was shallow and his muscles sluggish, but he felt the faint warmth of life returning. A healer stood beside him, her form tall and shimmering like polished glass. She told him that his actions had saved the princess from mortal harm, but at a cost. The energy bolt had wounded him in a way their healing chambers struggled to mend. Human blood behaved strangely when exposed to their energies. Still he would live, though she added this with a tone both reassuring and cautious. Later Lyra appeared, stepping quietly into the chamber. Her glow had dimmed, as if she carried the weight of guilt that her survival had required a stranger to bleed. She thanked Leon with a voice that resonated like wind through chimes. Leon managed a faint smile, assuring her that he only did what any guard should. Her eyes softened. For her kind, the act was extraordinary. Their society revered sacrifice and loyalty, but rarely received such gestures from outsiders. Lyra left with a promise to speak with her mother, the Queen, about granting Leon honors. Those words would soon bind Leon in ways he did not expect. 2 cycles later, palace guards arrived with ornate armor and solemn expressions. They escorted Leon to the high throne hall where the Queen awaited. She stood twice the height of a human, her body glimmering with a lattice of brilliant facets, each shifting in mesmerizing patterns. Her presence radiated power and ceremonial gravity. Lyra stood at her side, watching anxiously. The Queen addressed Leon in a voice that boomed through the chamber like a resonant bell. She declared that his act of bravery had forged a bond by ancient law. Spilling blood for a member of the royal line created a life debt that the Queen was bound to honor. In their culture, such a debt required protection and reciprocity, and until the balance was restored, she would not allow the person who shed their blood to depart the empire. Leon's heart sank. He understood neither the law nor the customs. His mission had been to protect the delegation, not to be absorbed into alien tradition. The Queen stated that the life debt meant he must remain under her guardianship until she deemed the balance equal. Leon tried to speak, insisting he wished to return to his people once he healed, but the Queen's tone grew firm. She could not release him without violating the sacred rule. To do so would dishonor the entire royal house. Lyra stepped forward, urging her mother to reconsider. She argued that humans did not follow their laws, and that binding Leon against his will would damage future diplomatic trust. But the Queen's facets darkened in disapproval. She insisted that the law was above personal desire. Leon would stay. Confined within the palace, Leon struggled to adjust. He walked the crystalline corridors under the watchful eyes of guards, who respected him but would not let him leave the grounds. The healing chambers kept his wounds stable, but each day he longed for Earth. Messages sent to his commanding officers returned with polite concern, but no immediate solution. The Queen refused negotiations, claiming the matter was sacred and internal. Lyra visited him often, her glow flickering with guilt each time she saw his frustration. Yet despite the circumstances, Leon noticed that she seemed more at ease with him than with many of her own people. She confided that her culture had rigid expectations and that his selfless act had shaken her understanding of duty. Over time, an unexpected rapport formed between them. They walked the palace gardens, where crystalline trees bent their branches like living lanterns. Lyra explained the history of her world, its wars, its victories, its fears. Leon shared stories of Earth, its storms, forests, and cities. The two of them discovered similarities in their values. Both believed in protecting those who could not defend themselves. Both valued courage, without expectation of reward. Their conversations grew longer. Leon found himself easing into the rhythm of her voice. Lyra's glow brightened whenever he smiled, but the growing bond between them did not break the Queen's resolve. She believed her duty lay in upholding the ancient law, even if doing so strained relations with Earth. In her eyes, Leon's willingness to bleed for her daughter meant he had proven his worth in a way that demanded respect and guardianship. She assigned him a personal chamber, honor guards, and even a ceremonial blade of living crystal. Yet the gilded treatment only deepened his sense of captivity. A gilded cage remained a cage. One day an earthquake shook the palace. Cracks splintered across the floors as subterranean energies surged unpredictably. Lyra was in a distant wing where the tremors hit hardest. Leon dashed through shuddering halls, ignoring guards who shouted at him to take shelter. He found her beneath a collapsing arch. Without hesitation, he dove forward, shielding her with his own body as another structure fell. They hit the ground as shards rained around them. Leon grit his teeth against the pain. When the tremors subsided, he helped Lyra stand, her glow flickering rapidly in distress. She stared at him with eyes filled with sorrow and admiration. He had risked his life for her again. This time, the Queen witnessed his act through the palace monitors. She summoned him immediately. When he entered the throne hall, she studied him in solemn silence. Her facets held a mixture of gratitude and something more complex. She acknowledged that his repeated sacrifice proved a devotion no law could easily contain. Yet instead of releasing him, she declared that his actions only deepened the life debt. The more he risked himself, the more responsibility she bore to safeguard him. Leon's frustration erupted. He protested that he had acted out of instinct and principle, not to be bound by ritual. He demanded the right to decide his own fate. The Queen listened, but her stance remained firm. She insisted that preserving him was now a royal obligation, not a choice. Lyra intervened, her voice trembling. She told her mother that confining Leon could only breed resentment and weaken the bond formed by his sacrifice. She warned that their people could not force loyalty through chains, even if those chains were made of honor. The queen examined her daughter for a long moment. Something shifted in her gaze. She asked Leon whether he wished to leave because he hated their world or because he sought freedom. Leon answered that he respected their people deeply, but freedom was a core value of his own. Without it, his honor meant nothing. After a long pause, the queen dismissed the guards and stepped closer. For the first time, her voice softened. She explained that her people had survived countless wars by building a culture centered on duty and sacred bonds. To break the life-death law without precedent could shake the foundations of their society. Yet she admitted that keeping Leon imprisoned honored the law while violating the spirit of the courage he had shown. She could no longer ignore the growing tension between duty and fairness. She proposed a solution. If Leon wished to regain his freedom, he must accept a new form of bond, one founded on choice rather than sacrifice. He would become an honored ally of the royal house, a title rare among foreigners. It would release him from confinement while maintaining the symbolic connection created by his actions. He would be free to leave or stay. The choice would be entirely his. Leon accepted with visible relief. The queen's facets brightened in approval. She declared the life debt transformed, and